Hi everyone, my name is Mayra Cerda and I'm here to present the two lectures we have for today, which is Rhetoric of the Image and Woman in a Mirror. So in Rhetoric of the Image, Roland Barthes talks about the linguistic nature of the image, how image is a representation, and his main question is how does meaning arrive to these images, and he specifically says he's going to analyze advertising since they all have an implied meaning and all these different messages. So he goes on to explain that there's three messages. The first is the linguistic message. It's the use of text within, aside, or as an explanation of an image. Its functions are to be an anchorage, which he explains is the support to support the meaning or to relay on it. There is a denominative function, and it directs the reader to what they are supposed to be reading and what they're supposed to be seeing. So in the in this image, he explains how the simple word pensani denotates the Italianicity, which we are all related to some parts. One of the main parts is food, so this is a very explicit message. The second is a coded iconic message. It's a denotated image, not a literal message, but it's implied. And one code that I like is a message by eviction constituted by what is left in the image when the signs of connotation are mentally deleted. So he says that in order to be able to see this message, we need to delete mentally what we are seeing. So we need to avoid seeing the first message, which I think at first is very difficult, but once you start analyzing other advertising, it's very easy to point out. And he gives a very good explanation between a drawing and how a drawing will never be as real as a photograph, because a photograph is a copy of what we're seeing, and maybe the photographer chooses a specific thing, but it will never change, as a drawing has the personality and the style of whoever's drawing it. And he also talks about how technology and its developments are masking the constructed meaning. So the more we are able to share and the more we are able to tweak these things with Photoshop and everything, it's a lot easier to be lost in what this message means. And the third is a non-coded iconic message. It's symbolic or cultural. So it depends on different types of knowledge, practical, national, cultural, which are invested in the image. And so he explains that one lexical unit involves different lexicons, or that we see one image with several different attitudes depending on our knowledge and our attention to it. So this image can be seen very different in several countries depending on what they've learned throughout their lives. And he goes on to explain the difference between denotation and connotation, which the teacher also explains in his presentation. Connotators are scattered traits or symbols, and the denotation is associates elements without any system. So these are what is socially constructed, how we see the way we've been taught to see the world. And this is a very famous image, which is, this is not a pipe, c'est une pompe, and it's the implied meaning and the literal meaning that contrast, and it's a juxtaposition, which leads me to the next reading, which is Woman in a Mirror by Marshall McLuhan. He explains that this is Picasso in Woman in a Mirror, and according to McLuhan, he was able to explain a lot by using juxtaposition. So by putting different things that at first are not associated, are able to create, as he says, a spatio-temporal world, and we are able to understand. And I really like his, he compares it to making Madame Bovary into one single piece. Like, you can put a whole life into one thing if you know how to use the right elements. Symbolic unity among the most diverse and externally unconnected facts or situations. So he explains also a Berkshire advert, and as the other article from Bart's, he says that there's a chain of reaction within the advertisement. So we see a woman, she's classical, good girl, Hollywood type, and then we have a stallion, and you know, this horse that represents a little bit more power. And she, so the juxtaposition allow him to pass the sensors of consciousness. And I feel like with recent changes in advertising and social, and how we accept things, this level of consciousness has changed, so we're able to take more literal meanings in advertising, but it's still, I feel it's a little bit jarring sometimes, and I think advertisers should be a little bit more careful in how they portray their company or their products. So my questions are, do you think that this type of advertising using the 3 types of messages works for every type of company or product? Or if, for example, for a charity, it might be less necessary to have implied messages. And so with social media being a strong part in how people advertise, do you think this type of images and advertisements need to change? And I see it more as in how we are taking every information fast. You know, we want everything really quick. We want to see an image and know exactly what we're seeing. And I think people will still use these messages, but I don't think that we are that inclined to really look deeply into the advertisement. So I hope you like my presentation and understand me, and I can wait to see yours. Bye, thank you. Sorry, I lost the screen. Okay. Just 1 second.